I hadn't done it yet. All right, give me a quick second, y'all. Sorry. All right, cool. Let's see here. All right, give me a quick second, y'all. Sorry. All right, bear with me. Hopefully, Dr. Davis will be here soon enough too. All right, let's see. One other thing I got to do. I remember. It's my first time, not first time. I've only done this a few times. I'm preparing for a show, which I'm gonna tell you about at the end. And then I gotta learn how to do this stuff quicker. So just bear with me. I just forgot I know what I was looking to do. Hold on. All right. Get back to my script, where I was at. All right, I'm a little confused. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. All right, we good. We live on Facebook now. All right, cool. All right, let me go back and share my screen to show y'all, again, all things mental dialogue. And hopefully by the time I'm finished, Dr. Davis will be back. Share screen. All right. Now, I got some of my best friends from college on here. They probably looking at me like, they know I don't do none of this stuff. They looking at me like, how Montoya learn how to use a computer? I really don't like these things.
I was just thinking to myself, damn, he gonna have to teach me some of this.
Yeah, you already know how much I hate doing this. Right now I lost my screen. I don't know what my screen at now. Now it's more like what you used to, right, Tip?
Man,
messing up.
I remember when I had to help you with computer science.
Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. I'm back on the screen where I'm at. I'm almost there, y'all. Bear with me. Where am I? Oh, damn, I lost it up there. Here you go, right there. All right, cool. All things mental dialogue. Hopefully, by the time I finish this, Dr. Davis will be back on. So, if anybody want to watch this, I promoted they can watch it live. So, I ain't been on for 30 minutes. I probably lost everybody that would have watched it. But anyway, with that said, I do have a radio show. If you're first time getting used to it, tuning in with us right now, we do have a radio show live every Saturday morning called the Mental Dialogue Talk Show from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I always keep the latest couple of episodes. We do hard conversations on race, sex, and culture. I got Latrice on with me tonight. She's one of our queens of intellect. I got a cadre of sisters that keep me on check on the show. I always make sure we have a Black woman's viewpoint, no matter what the show is. And Latrice is on tonight, helping me kind of monitor the chat. And anyway, so she's been on plenty of these shows, but this is to give you an idea of the shows that we do. I go by the name of Black Socrates, which we always ask questions. We do our show in the form of a question. So the last couple of shows was parenting skills, when your best isn't good enough. Had on a couple of therapists to talk about basically childhood trauma sometimes that we may have gotten from our parents, whether it was intentional or not. So we had a very good discussion on Saturday. The Saturday before that was wifey material or sex only. How do men decide? So again, those are links to our show. I actually got 3 weeks on here. The week before that was what about the politics of education and Black boys? And then for those that actually want to join our club, you can join the Mental Dialogue Community Club. We also have YouTube videos we do. What we're doing tonight may get put to YouTube, for example, and the future show that you're going to hear more about will be on our YouTube page as well. And this is I was featured in Atlanta Shout Out Magazine some months back. That was a real cool opportunity. And then I wanted to show y'all real quick, for any of you that want to support Mental Dialogue other ways, I do have an affiliate link with ERGJ Black Bazaar. So it's an opportunity to get, especially if you're outside of places like Atlanta where you maybe don't have a lot of opportunity to shop Black, if you will. So here's an opportunity to kind of get an opportunity to shop Black. Different, they're known mostly for their home and bathroom decor, if I'm saying that correctly. And I just wanted to kind of navigate through the site. But just know that if you see something on this site that you want to support, I think I get like a 20% affiliate commission, if you will. So just know that if you have opportunity or see something on here that you would like to get access to, they obviously directly ship, but this is just showing you a little bit on the site. And just know that any support, I will be putting this link in the chat first, because again, that's an opportunity to support and make sure we get to continue doing stuff like this. All right. Is Dr. Davis in the window? Because I'm doing share screen. I can't see him. Dr. Davis, you back yet?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, perfect timing. All right. So I'm just spending 1 more minute on this, just showing people this site. Again, these are other opportunities. School just started back. I think these are some of the cool things right here. Sending your kids to school. I know a lot of people like to get fresh for school. So you got like these little real nice book bags and stuff for your children. So just navigate the site, find a lot of things. Just know again that anything that you buy here, 20% commission goes to Mental Dialogue. And that's how we keep doing the work that we do. With that said, I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing started and introduce our special guest, Dr. Keenan Davis. Let me stop sharing the screen real quick. All right, so before we get started, just a couple of things. Davis is our guest. I'm gonna share something known as the Buying Black Manifesto. Some of our members, they've seen this before, but for y'all of you that are new to it, I just wanted to highlight that while he's the guest, y'all can participate as well. I do want to throw that out. So even though he's featured, y'all can participate as well. With that said, basically to go ahead and keep this thing moving. I'm basically going to go through the manifesto. Dr. Keenan Davis, who runs one institution, if you will, he's going to give his background and y'all understand why he's the particular guest. And we're going to critique this Buying Black Manifesto. The thing that I want to say to everybody, if it's your first time coming to Mental Dialogue, the best thing about what we do is we challenge you to keep an open mind. So whatever thoughts you may have already about our community, I'm asking you to open up your minds and be willing to be challenged on a lot of things that you may have heard throughout your lives. We're going to challenge those thoughts tonight, and we're begging that you are open to it. We have two rules at Mental Dialogue. The first one is we're not politically correct. We outlaw political correctness. So you can say things with your passion if you need to, no problem. Rule number two, though, is with that passion. Rule number two is bring your passion, but remain respectful. So if something, again, I'll navigate the dialogue, but ultimately say it how you feel it. Don't worry about saying it wrong, and just be respectful. Even if you disagree wholeheartedly with what somebody's saying, we're asking that you at least try to listen to why they think that way, even though you disagree. So with those two rules said, Dr. Keenan Davis, if you will, King, thank you for being with us this evening. If you want to give some background on one institution, and we'll get started with this discussion.
Appreciate having me. Hello, everyone. How y'all doing? Other panelists. Hope everybody's well. Everybody is watching on all the different platforms, locally, abroad. Appreciate you spending your holiday night with us. Certainly an opportunity. I know that Black Socrates, AKA Montoya Smith, is doing some good work, bringing conversations to life. And certainly that segues into what I've been able to help create with a few good people along the way. In the last 6 months, we've created a platform called One Institution. And certainly, to make it simple, it's an opportunity for everyday people to give voice to everyday problems. And so what I feel in my life is that oftentimes our solutions are right next door to us. They may be in a barbershop, they may be in a hair salon, they may be at the water cooler conversation at work when it's not COVID and everybody's in the office space, right? But the conversations that we generally have and we've had are likened to most of our problems. We usually don't find the solutions in our favorite artists, watching them on the big screen, but we usually find them with each other. So for me, it was creating a platform that allowed people to, small stories or big, no matter the size, to tell their story, to give their voice a platform in order for them to speak their truth, with hopes that within that truth, there were solutions for all of us to make tomorrow better than today. So One Institution is a media platform that focuses on video, podcasts, obviously telling stories, big or small, to create a narrative that pushes society forward. And we are, as we've been told initially, one of, if not the first, video podcasting platform in North America to establish itself the way that we have. So we're really excited about what we've been able to do. We have 14 influencers, 14 originally produced shows at www.oneinstitution.com. And obviously that'll continue to grow as time elapses.
Nah, perfect. So with that said, let me say this real quick, and we'll say more about this at the end. But I've been given the opportunity to be one of those talents that's going to eventually be on One Institution. So that show is going to be Wednesday night. We'll get into that after this discussion. But I am thankful for the opportunity to be with you, Dr. Davis, if you will. We're obviously going to be Keenan tonight, but definitely wanted to.
It's all good.
But yeah, well, yeah, you real good. You good people, man. But I just like to respect anything that people have earned, if you will. But with that said, I'm going to do another share screen, and I'm going to just basically share the manifesto, and we're going to walk through it. So I'll kind of go to you first, Keenan, to say, hey, what you think of this? But anybody that has any thoughts about what you're hearing or seeing, basically, we're going to do it like we always do. And this is work. You literally can just come off the mic and just jump in. It hasn't been an issue of all these that we've done for over a year. You can chat for those who hate getting, don't want to talk. We respect that too. So you can chat your question or chat your thought. And I got Latrice on who will be kind of monitoring the chat for me. So you can come off the mic and say something or get in the chat or whatever. So a lot of this will be me and me and Keenan going back and forth, but y'all are in it too. So don't think y'all just have to listen to he and I, if that makes sense. All right, with that said, let me share the screen one more time. All right, so what you see before you is something that's going to be in my upcoming book called Just My 3 Cents. If I get an opportunity, I may tell you more about the book later, but we're going to go ahead and jump on this. This is just something that's just an additional part of the book. The book has a whole nother format, but this is something that I'm putting in there as an encouragement for us to kind of get an understanding of what buying black looks like in 2021. And so you see here it says, and then bear with me, I'm going to just kind of read it, but I'm going to jump off and start having discussions. But I definitely want to set the stage by just reading the top of it. How to become a revolutionary capitalist. It says, we are typically overly critical of our Black-owned businesses because in many instances, they are competing against companies that have been in business 50 to 100 years longer. Most of our Black-owned businesses are one-person shops wearing every hat, including sales, marketing, accounting, customer service, not to mention most Black startups often lack the capital, or more importantly, access to capital as they attempt to compete within their industry. So I just want to set the stage as we start talking about these Black-owned businesses. There's a lot of things that we think, and to a degree, I don't think we consider what I just said. And let me give some context to even what I just wrote here. The context is, for example, I have a mechanic that's out of this world, and a lot of the members have used them, and other people outside of the $1 Community Club have used them. You go to his spot, he's an excellent mechanic, but if you go to his spot, it's not going to look like Jiffy Lube. Okay, it's not. Jiffy Lube is going to be more expensive than him, not going to do as good work, but they look the part. But Jiffy Lube's been around much longer than him, and they pay somebody to clean up. He do his work and go home and don't necessarily clean up like somebody at Jiffy Lube you getting paid minimum wage to clean up Jiffy Lube. So I'm just kind of pointing out that over time, he will have to build systems to move above and beyond him being the do-it-all. But a lot of times we'll compare that the person wearing many hats with a company that 100 years ago looked just like my man, but they're 50 years in and they now have systems. They're now hiring. And sometimes we compare our businesses to people that have been in business 50 years longer, 40 years longer. Because in 40 years, a lot of our first generation entrepreneurs, which many of us still are in our community, in 20 years, I can't wait to see what they look like. In 40 years, I can't wait to see what they look like, because they're going to look like some of the businesses that we're comparing them to today. So I like to throw that out there. So the first one is to stop all Black spending power myths. And the biggest one that we often say and talk about is African Americans are not. So basically, people say that we're the biggest consumers in the country. A lot of people believe that. That is absolutely not true. So the first one I'll point out is African Americans are not the biggest consumers in the country. And I'll bring a little data to back this up. According to the Sea League Center of Economic Growth, this is conducted at University of Georgia yearly. Economic Black spend 1.3 trillion, which is a number a lot of people have heard. We spend $1.3 trillion a year. We pull that number out, but what very seldom happens is any comparison to what the rest of the different people in the country are doing. So when you solo $1.3 trillion, which sounds like a lot of money, then you're pinpointing and saying, look how we waste money. We just assume that it's wasteful money. But other cultures, Hispanics spend about 1.5 trillion, Asians almost at 1 trillion, and whites were at 10.6 trillion. This is in 2018. All these numbers are higher now. But again, this is just when this was done. And so if I were to show you our population numbers, you would find out that all of these numbers coincide with about where we're at within the population. The only group that's actually spending above what their population will require is the Asians. Everybody else is spending at about basically with 12%. Hispanics are at 14% of the country. Asians are 5% of the country. So everybody's consuming at about similar rates. So if everybody's spending at similar rates, we should no longer say Blacks are the biggest consumers in the country. Any thoughts on what you just heard, Keenan?
No, I think that, numbers don't lie, but oftentimes our emotions get involved when we're talking about each other. And, I'm representing a shirt right now says Gaines Avenue. That's a street that I was brought up on in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I think a lot of times our assessment of the situation is based on where we come from. And it's based on how we were brought up and the people around us. And as you pointed out, first generation entrepreneurs, everybody that's probably listening and participating in this telecast is probably first generation or even second generation professional to some extent. So this is all new for all of us. And we really don't know what to expect independent of the agenda that's being pushed in front of us. So we see the numbers. We see the 1.3 trillion. We see how much we spend on Hennessy and Cools and Newports. We see the hair product consumption across the board, hair and skin product. However, I think it's extremely important for us to understand the context in which it's spent. What kind of hair do we have, right? Or the context in which it's presented. Well, who's giving out the information? Who's the one that's pushing the information, right? And so I think that when you look at this Black Manifesto, but more importantly, when you look at our culture and how our culture drives the epicenter of the Western world for that matter. And you got to ask yourself, if our culture is so important, which it is, and it's so expensive, which it is, just by music and art and sports alone, then how do we get to a place where our culture pays the dividends to the people on the ground? Because your example of the one man, one woman shop mechanic, or the one man or one woman shop barber or stylist or, accountant, whereas they don't have the brick and mortar, they don't have the support system, but we know that we're producing and consuming par for our course, par for our population. So what can we do individually and then thereby collectively that we can start to put each other in the position that we can start fighting above our weights, similar to the Asians, right? Because the reason why Asians spend more is because they make more. That's the reason. They make more, so they spend more. How do we get ourselves to make more so that we're not talking about 1.3 trillion? We're talking about 2.3 trillion. Because if we're spending more money, Montoya, that means collectively we're making more money, which means your example of the mechanic is now he has someone, either a second mechanic or he has someone sweeping the floor, right? And so I think that's really where we got to get to in this conversation, move the needle forward, is moving a collective mindset to buying more from each other, but also supporting each other to the point where it's not just consumption, it's not just a purchase, but it's also the support aspect. Because at the end of the day, if I got two mechanics doing single man, single woman shops, is it better for them to corner the market and to patch up and be the same shop? That's another question. That's another part that we got to ask ourselves, is why do we have 25 barbers and not 10 barbers, shops?
Beautiful. That's a great question. Again, and I think as far as the always mental dialogue, the mindset, again, the manifesto is first attacking the myths that are not true. And the reason I like to attack those is because we say these things not understanding that we're saying them in the earshot of our children, and so we start to believe things that are not true. And so beliefs lead to some of the things that we're complaining about, and they're not even true. We're not the biggest consumers. Again, that's just one myth. Let me go into a little more details about not being the biggest spenders for those who have, may have never, didn't realize that we're not, because what also goes into it, because we think we're the biggest spenders, quite often we think we have more money as a collective than we actually have. So that those two things kind of go hand in hand. And so sometimes we'll come up with solutions, but if those solutions are not based on fact, that will not be a solution. So just to even put this in perspective, if Blacks left America, approximately 3 trillion in household wealth would leave America. However, that is only 2% of total household wealth in America out of 105. These numbers are higher as of the past year. So I wrote this a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, which highlights the need for reparations. And so even if you disagree with reparations, staying on code would preclude not speaking out against them. And so that's just obviously a personal thought, but the idea, sometimes we talk about African Americans staying on code. And so I, in my opinion, we should never see African Americans arguing over whether reparations are needed or not. If somebody's taking that path, hey, let them take that path, because right now, ADOS, African descendants of slaves, that group has come up with a legal way to, in a sense, seek reparations. So whether you agree or disagree with it, at least in a sense, at a minimum, I say stay on code when we realize as a whole, we're only holding about 2% of all the wealth in the country. And so like Dr. Keenan said, like Keenan said, he said, hey, we influence a lot, but how do we reap the benefit? So we've influenced all of this money to be made, but we're obviously not reaping the benefit as far as what we're able to keep the household wealth. Any thoughts on this before we go to the next myth?
No, I think that I like you, I like numbers, right? Statistically speaking, the average Black household or the average Black person has a $19,000 net worth. And the average white household has $119,000 net worth. And there are a lot of reasons that exists, right? We all know institutionally, that's whether it be subjugation, marginalization, it's structural racism, the whole nine, right? We can name every acronym in the book of why it exists, and there's $100,000 gap, but there is. And so part of that is that life insurance wasn't always afforded to us. There were always loopholes in it. Some of it is that we haven't all at the baseline level really acquired a normal amount, we haven't acquired an over amount. Like, for example, right? People don't realize you could be selfish with life insurance. You know what I'm saying? Like, meaning you could think about like, okay, this is how much it's going to cost to bury me or bury Big Mama or whatever the situation is. But we got to get out of that mindset of how much something costs and only getting the minimum amount, right? When it comes to life insurance, this is an opportunity for Black America to be selfish. And this is an opportunity for us to reap benefits that we don't see maybe up close in person. But if every individual collectively is literally looking at life insurance as a way for the next generation or two to get back what was stolen from us, that is a way for us to, again, it's a very unselfish way of doing things. But if someone says in 100 years, right, that we can make up, you know, half of what was taken, then I'm like, okay, how? Tell me how. So when you read the numbers of what we have from a calculus perspective, and then I hear the good people who are participating in this telecast typing in the questions, making, you know, I see the statements, I see some of the questions and comments, and I agree with them all. Like, you know, black power goes so much further than the actual statement in itself, right? Because when you start to think about the idea of what we can do with social equity, and what I mean by social equity, Montoya, and all those who are listening, is that there really isn't a ban on yet, a gate on who can participate in social media and who. So I'm calling this concept of social media participation, social equity. So we've been blocked out of everything beforehand in our life, in the history of Black people in America, right? Voting, healthcare, economics, lending, you name it, real estate. We've been on the outside needing someone to pass a law, pass an amendment in order for us to participate. So the social equity involved in social media is the first piece of property, call it property, that we've been able to participate without asking a white man to help us. So I think that's something that we got to really look at from the standpoint of this gateway of opportunity with social media. We're using it right now. Some of us use it better than others, but how can we really take this social equity, this participation opportunity, and segue, leverage it into a collective benefit?
No, I love it. You're making me think of one of my good friends, Eldridge Washington, who's in media. And at the end of the, we always hear about Dr. Claude Anderson talking about those five. You've heard that reference to him talking about, in a sense, about 5 ways to build a community. And the fourth pillar in that house is the media. And saying that no matter what information you have, as good as it may be for your people, it matters not if you can't reach them. And so what Eldridge Washington always says is that social media is disrespectful for the very reasons that you just said, because while we know the conglomerates when it comes to national TV and things of that nature, that's actually only down to like 3 or 4 companies, right? But social media is the opportunity to disrupt that. And so, like you said, let's take full advantage of it because we're not locked out. And so it's a chance to be disrespectful to those who may control, in a sense, the messaging and imagery. And then there's always that with that quote, he who controls the images controls the minds. And so we're always up against that. And so the opportunities to have a one institution is an opportunity to, in a sense, direct your children towards media that's going to support and help you raise your children versus media that makes it harder for you to raise your children, if you will. So with that said, let's keep moving through this thing. So another thing real quick, African Americans do support one another in business. I'll give a couple of major examples. Sam Tisdale versus the myth of that we don't support each other. If you're on this thing and think that we don't support each other, that is absolutely not true. I stand by absolutely, and not just because I have these 2 examples. I'll give a little context and then we'll keep moving. So I use the example. Sam Tisdale successfully became the first Black-owned beauty supply store in Nashville, Tennessee, and grossed $50,000 in 3 hours on opening day or whatever. Now that's an extreme example, right? Like a great example. I'll give you another example real quick. Dr. Key Hallman here in Atlanta founded the Village Market ATL. It's a quarterly marketplace. They have over 80 Black-owned businesses fully supported by Black consumers. They had a Black August campaign last year. The year before the pandemic. Let me get my years together. And they did basically 1.8 million went to Black-owned businesses here in Atlanta in just the month of August alone. And so I'm pointing these out because basically Sam Tisdale, Dr. Hallman, they do good business. They don't do good. They're not a good Black-owned business. They do great business. So they have a lot of these things, systems in place. And because they do good business, and we can only imagine with Sam Tisdale, his marketing had to be out of this world to do 50,000 in 3 hours. But my point being is two things. If his marketing's done that well, we show up. This is an example. And then I love to use the Village Market, which is the dopest event every quarter here in Atlanta. But I love to say this. We got all these nice malls here in Atlanta. The one that everybody knows or hears about in Atlanta is Lenox Mall. That's the high-end mall or whatever. Or Phipps Plaza or whatever. Those are the high-end malls. But when we start talking about the concept of whether people think we'll support others before we support our own. Like that's the myth that we always say. Here's the proof that it's a myth. I know right now, for as much as all the influencers and even the celebrities and stars that we have in Atlanta, for as much as you might get to see them at Lenox Mall or Phipps Plaza, going to those high-end malls, and we like to go in there and shop. I'm not saying we don't like to do those things, but I tell you this, if Phipps Plaza or Lenox Mall charge you $15 to come in the mall, we stop going. And the reason I use that example is because to go to the Village Market, there's a charge before I can go in and support. And we still support those 80 Black vendors come back every quarter because of how much money they make at the Village Market. So this small example shows me we want to spend with our own so bad, we'll pay a fee to go spend with our own. Don't tell me we won't support our own. When it's done with excellence and quality, we will gladly spend with our own. Let's go to the next myth real quick. Stop asking for the hookup. Let me break down what I mean by that. According to business consultant Terry Simmons, he's been on the show before, the average markup in American business is only 38%. Therefore, consistent discounts to family and friends can severely hamper a startup Black-owned business's sustainability, especially when the average Bob Black-owned business grosses $58,000 a year and takes 3 years on average to turn a profit, according to bizinfluence.com. So for our 14% of Black-owned entrepreneurs that are in our communities, about 14% of us are entrepreneurs. Just keep in mind, when they're going in business, I came up, I had the hookup mentality, I had to grow out of this. But when somebody starts a business, even if it looks like they're being successful, they may have not turned a profit yet, and we're in there asking for a hookup. I'm just saying I came from this, so I'm charging myself and had to move past this. And part of the way I was able to move past this is when I came down here trying to get into the music industry, and I come up with little side hustles and things that I had to do. I would go to my friends. I had an amazing group of friends. They would come into town, and so because they was my friends, now I would look to give them a discount because they're my friends. And my friends had to say to me, brother, the best way for us to support you is pay exactly what it's worth. That's how we show you that we support you. That changed my mindset about how I stay in business. And so that's exactly how I do business with my friends. I don't mind who they give discounts to, but I don't want the discount. So just something to think about. Any thoughts on that, Keenan, as well as anybody else? Y'all jump in. Y'all don't have to just sit around and listen to me and Keenan talk.
Right. You definitely don't have to sit around and listen to me, but I'll definitely take a crack at it. I think that, it's two ways I look at this. I'm a business owner. I've been a business owner. You're not here from my bio, but I've owned franchises, so W-2s, employees in multiple states at the same time. So I understand the whole idea of owning something, and people who know you know that that's your brick and mortar. Understand that that's your product and service, and they're cool with you in the mindset of, man, what's up? Can I get a salad? I look at it as two ways, right? The two ways that I look at it is the reason why in 2021 we've been able to accomplish so much as a people is because we've always, previous generations, been there for each other as a people. I mean, at the end of the day, right? The stories of, going next door to get sugar and getting them one egg or cup of milk, or, having somebody watch your kids overnight cross the street, or whoop your kids before you whooped them, right? That's the village. That's the community mindset that we were birthed from. And that's how we survive, is really being there for each other and doing each other solid on top of solid on top of solid. So there is a mentality that we've always shared that if I got it, you got it. If I'm on, you on. So I understand at the crux of it, the baseline foundation, I don't necessarily believe that there is a negative intent, but there's a difference in business than there is in pleasure. And so there's a mindset shift. And I think that, to my second point, the reason why we don't understand that shift, because only 1 out of 7 of us are entrepreneurs. And so only 1 out of 7 of us know that 99% of all entrepreneurial ventures fail. So 6 out of 7 of the population don't even understand the Herculean effort it takes for a startup to make it. And only 1 out of 7 of us who's in the fight of trying to be that 1% within the 1 out of 7 to get that startup off the ground truly understands the risk that's at hand. So the undertaking that many of us go through as entrepreneurs, but the community aspect that most of us have deep down at our core is at a constant conflict. And that's what I think you see happening in this situation right here.
Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in real quick? Just want to make sure it's an interactive discussion this evening.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in.
What's up, Trey?
Yeah, I totally understand what you guys mean, and just like you said, hey, getting a cup of sugar, go get the milk, and pretty much, hey, want to go ahead and give this for free. But sometimes, like say for instance, just with my business, I had a couple of photographers say, hey, how much do I owe you for doing a photo shoot? Hey, let me get a couple of t-shirts for free. And here, I give you 100, 200 photos or whatnot. And that way I'm able to use those photos to go ahead and show on social media that, hey, there is a brand and hey, these are professional shots. You know, so I kind of see that you can't do that for everybody, but you know, in business wise and certain aspects, yes, it is smart that, hey, okay, here you go. I'll lend you 1 or 2 shirts here in return. Let me get some photos, some professional shots so I can go ahead and support my business. So I get that totally.
You know what's interesting, Trey? Trey, what's interesting to your point, having been in the startup business for about the last roughly 10 years, 13 years technically, but 10 in the iteration that I'm in it now, I either do stuff for free or I charge normal price. There is no halfway. Like I don't, family, friends, it don't matter, right? Either I'm just going to do you a solid because it's a cause that I'm just passionate about, or it's a person that I'm passionate about, or I'm going to charge you the same thing that I charge rack rate. And I've gotten to a point where for me, that's been more helpful because I don't have to pick and choose kind of like a healthy medium number or point, right? I tell people all the time, hey, if you want me to book me for motivational speaking, right? This is my rate. This is my hour. This is the minimum. This is what it's going to cost. This is how many books you got to buy. This is what it is. If it's a boys and girls club, which I've come up through that system, saved my life in many instances, I'm likely to say, especially if it's local, at what time I need to be there, what do you need me to donate? You got me. So you see what I'm saying? Like, I think it comes down to what stage of the business you're in too, right? If you're a novice and you just starting off as an entrepreneur, as a Black-owned business, and you just getting your feet wet, and just like, you know, Montoya mentioned, you haven't turned a profit, right? You just figuring out what all this stuff means, who your audience is, what your customer needs, etc. Nah, you have to really, you got to be, because you're part of the 99% that's going to fail. You haven't proven that you're in the 1% yet. So for me, I'm going to give you advice of stick to what's got you to where you can actually see a profit potentially, and don't look back until you got that profit.
No, I love it. And the one nuance I would add, Trey, is this particular in a sense, stopping the myth, was really more consumer to business, business to business, bartering amongst each other to trade services that you could have just paid for anyway versus trading like that. I'm a big fan of that. I do that with people now. We, or whatever. Or sometimes what I rather do, kind of similar to what Keenan is saying, is I really just say, all right, what is it? I pay it. And then when you do get my service, you just pay it. So now it's not even thought about or figured out, is your value worth my value? So I rather literally, I'll just say, what's yours? And we just pay it and keep it moving. But definitely, when you're getting started, you definitely got to take advantage of things like that. So I would just say the hookup mentality I'm talking about doesn't apply in a business-to-business sense, if you will. All right, here's a suggestion. Increase Black-owned business spending to a minimum of 5 to 10%. So there are currently 2 million Black-owned businesses, but only 5% employ others. A 10% increase in Black spending would add more jobs within the Black community, which Keenan already talked about, that if we're spending more, it would create more opportunity. And so I suggested, I already just showed y'all mine, seek out the Black online marketplaces. I showed y'all the ERGJ one, which again, I am affiliate of, so make that clear when I recommend it. But I'll skip and say, understanding Black businesses often cannot compete on price alone. So Black consumers' willingness to pay more for Black-owned products or services are sometimes a necessity. And so due to that, here's something I put in bold. And this, I definitely want to hear your thoughts on this, Dr. Davis. So as an individual, if I'm deciding that I want to support a Black-owned product, right? I tell people the best way to make that decision is if it's within 25% of what you normally pay, then that's reasonable for you. But if it's above that, then based on what you normally pay for this item, don't start saying that because that business owner is charging too much. Just understand that's just not within your range. But a lot of times we'll say they're charging too much, not understanding that the market that the business owner may be after. You may not be their target audience, believe it or not, even though you're at this festival, or even though you're in their store, you may not be their target market. So I just say, I'm willing to pay more, but I keep that limited to within 25% of what I normally would pay for that particular item. I'm not a brand person, if you will, right? We have this idea that Blacks want all the brands. That's not always the case. Most of us can't afford those brands, and most of us don't consume those brands. We do see people, in a sense, buying brands when you like, they don't have enough money for that. But as far as you know, that might be the one pair of Jordans they bought the entire year. And they might have saved up for it, but for the most part, everything else they're buying is cheap. So we make assumptions that everybody overspends. And again, my recommendation is pay within 25%, be willing to do that, because our Black-owned businesses, due to supply, typically cannot compete with the big box companies. Your thoughts, Dr. Davis?
I think you hit it on the money, but at the same time, we also have to acknowledge something I think that's very important. We're living in an era where you have entrepreneurs. We've had entrepreneurs in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s that did us a great service, right? And they did it under the guise of not having civil rights, not having human rights in some context. And they were able to flourish even back in the early 20th century, right? In Tulsa and Wilmington and in Earl, Arkansas, these other enclaves where they had truly Black communities, Black everything, from banking, healthcare, fashion, education, throughout the entire opportunity diaspora. And what we've seen over the course of the 100 years since then is that you have a different kind of entrepreneur, and we're fearless and we're very creative across all different segments of the business population. And I think that because of that, we also have an extremely important opportunity, and that's to educate. See, when you look at Black churches, which is the first Black-owned business and still the biggest Black-owned business, when you watch our Black churches every Tuesday donate or deposit upward to $1 billion in a white bank, then you have to understand that our mentality, even at the grassroots level, hasn't truly shifted yet, because we haven't really understood the value of our collective leverage in our most important business. So when you start talking about margins, and you start talking about how to price correctly, I think that our mentality has to shift. Our mentality has to be further cultivated and educated, understanding that our leverage is our biggest asset. Our leverage in culture, what we bring to the Western world, our leverage in community, and what we bring by collectively engaging with each other. And so we have a responsibility to further educate each other as entrepreneurs, because I think that's the missing link. I don't believe that other communities have the same challenge when it comes to pricing correctly, when it comes to rolling out a service and or product to their community, because their community has an expectation that we're going to support our people and our product regardless. And I think that, to your point earlier, you read all these statistics. The statistics are valid. They don't lie. We do support each other. And we do go far great lengths to sometimes support each other. However, that support can continue to grow if we can further educate each other. Again, $1 billion, Black banks, black churches, white banks every week. I think that when you think about the mentality of our businesses, Montoya, and everyone that's looking and watching us right now, we have to start at the bottom to make sure that people understand our money, our product, our service is our leverage. And when we can figure out how to corral those pieces, as they say, it's curtains.
So I challenge that a little bit, Dr. King, Dr. Davis, with, in a sense, what I'm offering here. I think these are, in my opinion, realistic perspectives to what you're talking about looks like to a degree, because I mean, you've been in business. I was in sales for 10 years, and having sold to various cultures. Cultures don't support their own the way that we think they do. Like there are certain cultural issues. For example, this is making an example of what I'm talking about. So for India, for those from India, like their culture and how they look at purchasing things, they will go to the cheapest person regardless, because that's, in a sense, their culture. Like there are cultural things. So just like what we really do is, when we do good business, we have a Sam Tisdale. When we do good business, we have a Key Hallman. We don't have, and for example, if we're able to put up, like we're talking about mechanics, right? Basically, we lose sight of proximity. Proximity is basically when we see these other cultures, if you put up a good business and you're within proximity, they're coming to you. They're not driving past. Like we have this foreign idea that other cultures are not being convenient to support their own. Convenience is priority in America, and other cultures are not being devoid of convenience. And we have this expectation that we should be devoid of convenience, because that's what it will take to have this concept. For example, I know the numbers on the church. I don't disagree with the numbers. The numbers are what they are. But the reality of it ain't just simply that those churches are not putting them in our banks. You have to go into the context of why we only have less than 20 banks Black owned in the country. And that why ain't because of mentality. That's what I want to kill, is these myths that are not true, that have anything to do with mentality. If you actually go see the process for why there are less than 20 banks, it has nothing to do with us taking our money out of our banks and putting them in white banks. We think that's what it is. We like to say that now, but that's far from reality.
Well, but I also think it's an education process. I really believe that. I mean,
I'm not disagreeing with the education process.
Right? What I'm saying is education, right? I'm not saying I believe, I'll stand on it. If you show me a church in Atlanta, because you have, I think, 2 or 3 Black banks in Atlanta.
Two left.
Two?
Two.
You show me Atlanta where you have 2 Black banks, and then I would ask why the 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 churches in Atlanta area metro don't deposit in those two black banks, right? And I would say it's not intentional, right? I would say they may not ever even, nobody's maybe even brought it up. Seriously.
So we have in the last few years, like the last 5 to 10 years, black banking has been a big subject, right? A big subject matter. But if you were to answer, go ask those churches that question, when you hear their answer, you're not going to disagree with it. Because what happens is there are limitations. It's just two brothers just came together to put together two banks that were separate. And so now they have enough leverage to do what some of the bigger banks are doing. But when you understand the limitations of our two banks, then you start to understand why those churches are not necessarily banking in those churches.
But let me tell you why I brought up that point. I'm going somewhere with it. It ties together. So we as entrepreneurs, we need capital. Most of us can't hire another mechanic, or we can't hire someone to sweep. We can't hire a receptionist because we don't have the capital. But we can't go to the bank to get a loan for $10,000 to hire, to grow, to expand our Black-owned business. We also can't go to the church, right, that we may serve in our community to get the same loan, right? So my point of bringing that up is it's a cycle of opportunity that's sitting on the table called leverage in the Black community that our entrepreneurs can truly feast off if, in fact, we can get a pipeline that's stronger and more improved with Black-owned banks in the places that they do operate, because the entrepreneurs will be the ones that benefit the most. And what you'll see is a scale happening in our ecosystem of small business owners that continues to grow. And now you see with that expansion, some of the parts of the Black Manifesto that we've already covered answered immediately.
Now, fair enough. I mean, like I will say the two banks, I know them pretty good here, and they make a living off the people you just talk about. Like where they can't go get the bank, they can't get it from this bank. So they make a living off of trying to finance those type of entrepreneurs. That's how they even stay in business. So they're already doing a lot of what you just said. It's actually how they're holding on and staying in business for the entrepreneurs that can't get the big bank loan. So that is how they're surviving, just so you know. All right, but with that said, there's more in this, but we're gonna kind of knock it off right here so we can stay on time tonight. But I definitely hope y'all have appreciated, against this dialogue with myself and Keenan. And so it's an opportunity to really introduce our connection, which we mentioned at the very beginning. And so if I can highlight this very briefly, is Wednesday night, I'm going to be doing a video live podcast with one institution. Let me stop sharing my screen so I can kind of see myself. All right, with one institution called Just My 3 Cents. So if you've been a long time follower, that's a hashtag I've been using for a lot of years. And my listeners over on the Mental Dialogue talk show, I call them truth seekers. And so every Saturday, a live show, they call in. I show some of the shows that we've done the last few weeks. I call in and tell them, call in and give me your 3 cents. And so that's what we're going to be doing as I'm moving. And I'm still going to be doing my Saturday show, but I'm going to have an add-on show every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. So the first one premieres Wednesday night on Facebook Live. So I'll put in my personal page. It'll be on my personal page. And Keenan, if you will, just highlight the fact, and I can say thank you for giving me this opportunity to be a part of one institution.
No, thank you for being one of the influencers that's, again, I mentioned in the beginning, you see problems, Montoya, you see challenges. Your listeners, your followers, your community respects your effort, your time, your talent, and your treasure that you're bringing to create a better tomorrow. For us at One Institution, our platform is established specifically for people like you, people who truly have a voice and they have a story. And to us, it could be big or small, that changes the landscape of what our current situation looks like in society.
Love it. Well, thank you for the opportunity. And people stayed on, so I guess they love what they were seeing, and definitely want to make sure we gave y'all an opportunity to get in with us. But it was just really kind of an opportunity to let y'all know every Wednesday night. If you, basically what'll happen is I'll do the show, and I'll have a link, and y'all can come on the show with me, because what I want to do with just my 3 cents versus the Saturday show is I want to kind of talk about cultural things, just raise the culture. So I'll open up, but you can come in on 3 cents, and we'll have a dialogue and philosophize and come up with some ideas about what y'all bring to the table. So it's really an opportunity for the truth seekers, because I have an amazing audience on every Saturday. And so I got some of the, one of my callers one time says, "I'll pay to be on your show." Well, you don't have to pay to be on the show. Just join us on Wednesday night, because we have some, and we're very good at hard conversations on race and sex. So this is just an extension of that, but it's an opportunity for you as the listener to participate. There'll be a link. Click on that link, and you'll come on video live with me, and we'll do a quick, conversation about whatever you want to discuss that affects our community. But I thank y'all for being on with us tonight. I hope y'all have enjoyed this, and I look forward to becoming a part of one institution and getting doing well enough to get my stuff distributed so that y'all see it. So that's my
Montoya,
goal. Yes.
a couple of questions. Someone wants to know if your mechanic has an Instagram, and they want the name of those 2 Black-owned banks in Atlanta.
Okay, I'll give you the name of the 2. My mechanic don't got an Instagram. But if he on the east side, so if it's within your proximity or you need some issues, yeah, I got a couple of mechanics, but my main one, I just turned him on to a trucking company. He does a lot of business for big trucks, so he's good at what he does, but he ain't got time for no social media. The Black-owned banks. I don't know if James came on tonight. James, you on here? What's the name of the Black banks here? I bank with Citizens Trust. What's the other one, James? So my business, Mental Dialogue LLC, is with Citizens Trust. So I'm with them. James, are you on? James might not be on. I'm trying. I can see the name of the other one.
Credit Union of Atlanta, and it's Credit Union of Atlanta is the other one.
Oh,
and Unity National Bank.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Someone asked me a question.
Unity National Bank and Credit Union of Atlanta.
What was the name of the other black bank that almost went under? But I thought they survived. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they didn't.
Citizens Trust.
No, Citizens Trust is who I'm with. Somebody was asking.
Is that the one that almost went out?
No, it's the other one. Citizens Trust. They were the Citizens Trust.
Capital City disappeared.
Yeah, they did.
And Citizens Trust did a merger, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
that's why they're still here.
Trust was also the only one to get. Remember when they were bailing out the banks? They were the only ones to get some of that money, because Citizens Trust is one of our larger ones in the country. Out of the
well, my church used to be with Capital City, and
Capital City
pulled out.
Okay, so they did Capital City.
Yeah.
Okay.
Capital City didn't make it. We pulled out, and we put our money back with our denomination.
Gotcha.
I just did a Google, and this is as of February of 2021. First Choice Credit Union, Carver State Bank, Citizens Trust Bank, Credit Union of Atlanta, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Federal Credit Union, and Unity National Bank branch.
Oh, sounds good. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of our night. I am willing to stay on for anybody, as far as if you want to just kind of extend the dialogue, I'm open to that. So I'll stay on for another 15 to 30 minutes, counsel, how if there's any additional dialogue. I'm not used to y'all not participating as much, so that was different for me.
I think we were just listening.
Yeah. Well, Keenan, you must have been killing it, because I'm used to dialogue.
I can't say that. No, I think that they just wanted to see if I was full of SHIT or not. And hopefully they know that real recognize real. But also I appreciate, let me say that I like giving people their flowers, right? So I appreciate all of your community, Montoya, that supported you to this point, because at the end of the day, One Institution Media was attracted to Montoya because of the support that he's garnered over the years. So I have to give a shout out, a heartfelt shout out to all the people who have helped build him up, help support him, and help him give him the necessary confidence and clarity to push his narrative forward. So thank you to all of them. He's the newest addition to our family. We're excited to have him as an influencer. We expect amazing things out of him and out of y'all. So thank you.
Hey, thank y'all very much. This is the finale of our Unity Weekend. Please.
Froze.
I froze?
You did for a minute.
Okay.
Well,
so
one thing I wanted to add that I didn't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, brother.
One thing I wanted to add that I didn't hear, and you was talking about proximity and convenience, is that in many communities, Black people, our communities tend to have a higher percentage, I should say, of poverty. So, for instance, in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, which is the same town that Breonna Taylor was murdered at by the police, a lot of dialogue has came up, and they said that about only 2% of the businesses in Jefferson County, Kentucky, are Black owned. And Jefferson County, Kentucky is just under 25% Black. So the reason I brought that up is because you do have Black businesses, but only about 2% of them are Black. And because there is such a high level of Black poverty in Louisville, Kentucky, what I've noticed just from observation is that many of those businesses actually have to leave the community and service the white community to make it. So, for instance, there's a chef in Louisville, and he's nationally known. I can't think of his name, but the name of his restaurant is Super Chefs. And he's been on the Food Network and all this stuff. And his restaurant is in the white area. And for years, they've been asking him, why do you not have a restaurant in the Black community? So they had to do like special lending and all this stuff. And he's supposed to be opening up a restaurant in the Black side of the city within a few months, maybe this spring at the latest. But when you look at a lot of cities, because Louisville isn't the only one, a lot of times these businesses that are beyond hair salons, barbershops, funeral homes, which almost exclusively cater to Black people, when you have something else that's a little higher in quality, I guess I should say, the best word I could think of right now, they actually have to leave our community to be viable. And no one really talks about that.
James, that is a hell of a point. I'm glad that I was logging off, right? But you got me in this for at least 3 to 5 more minutes because that isn't, that isn't Louisville, Kentucky. That's Black America. And I'm glad that you acknowledge that, right? Because, and that's not to say that we're just poor, right? It's acknowledging that there is a level of poverty that exists in our communities, right? And I think the one thing that struck me in what you said, when you juxtaposed funeral homes, barbershops, hair salons, maybe your local automobile type of mechanic or place, and you start talking about potentially, well, what about the other people who offer maybe different services? Well, the one thing that I would say that's interesting to what you were saying, and I'm fully agreement, that when you see our athletes and our entertainers that come from poverty, they come from Louisville, from Detroit, from Harlem, from the 3rd Ward, 9th Ward, New Orleans, they come from Southwest Atlanta, wherever they come from, Dade County, and they make it. I'm not saying that we don't go back and help and hold camps and have Thanksgiving turkey give outs and gift drives during the holidays. But we do not go set up shop in the hood and build a business.
Nope.
Right? We don't put a house and fix houses in the business in the hood where we stay at. We go and assimilate. And this is all of us. I live in a white neighborhood and I'm not an athlete, but I'm a decent entrepreneur, right? I live in an affluent neighborhood. And so I'm calling myself out, by the way. So the challenge that we have is we take our success in these other businesses or these individual businesses, and we go assimilate into affluent white America instead of going back to the very place that we survived, we escaped, but that also needs us the most. Because these white folks don't need me around here. I'm just going to keep it a buck. The golf course is going to be perfectly fine a block and a half away without my Black ass. However, this is where this is where we oftentimes flee. And I think until we can figure out how to keep, I don't want to say our best, but the people who crack the code, the people who crack the code, we got to figure out, James, how we get us to come back and make the situation better so that small Black-owned businesses don't have to go out to the affluent neighborhoods just to survive, because we've built up the poverty level in those situations to now it's working class and middle class, and they can afford our product. Now they're not asking for a hookup. Now we don't have to worry about the 25% margins that we're asking for just so that we can make it to year 2. It's already built in to the natural ecosystem of the community.
So let me throw this in.
Good luck.
Oh, go ahead, James.
Oh, I was saying good luck because, like, I've kind of begged people to do that, and I'll give you an example. Montoya knows exactly where I live at. I specifically, purposely, conscientiously chose to buy my home in the hood. I consciously, purposely chose to be in our community. I also knew it was going through gentrification. I said, they're not going to get all of it. We're going to get some of it. Well, the census for Atlanta just came out. The national census came out. The city of Atlanta is no longer majority Black. We are the largest group in Atlanta, but we're only 47%. So they show within that time frame, about 44,000 white people moved into the city limits of Atlanta versus only 9,000 Black people. Now, here's the flip, the part that people also aren't talking about. At the same time that this happened, the metropolitan area of Atlanta became majority minority. The metropolitan area, over 6 million people, the 9th largest metropolitan area in the United States of America, Atlanta, Georgia, over 51% of these 6 million people are non-white, and a good portion of them are Black. So within this time period, several of our core counties have become majority Black. Douglas County, Clayton County, DeKalb County, Fulton County, Rockdale County, Newton County, and I also believe possibly, if I remember correctly, Gwinnett County. Now, what does that mean? It means that Black people have consciously, purposely, systematically decided that as they have come into this area, they do not want to live in historically Black communities. They have purposely decided they wanted to live in these suburban areas and take their money out. And the ironic thing is white flight still happens. So as soon as they move out there, because all the issues I've heard is, oh, it's better schools, oh, it's better this, or it's better that. I'm like, yeah, but as soon as you move in there, the school isn't no good. As soon as you move there, the businesses decide they don't want to serve you, and they move out even further. And then the younger white people that are less racist decide they want to live next to me in the hood. And you just keep on chasing them further and further out. And then if you do want to have a business, or if you do own a business, now you're still basically kind of chasing your tail. Like I showed Montoya an article a couple of years ago, and it talked about our businesses. Most of our businesses tend to be Black focused. And those are barbershops, salons, funeral homes, what was the other one? But it was mainly those things. And the reason being is because back in the day, they were so racist. They didn't want to touch your head. They didn't want to touch you when you died. So those were the businesses we had, and we still have those. But when you leave outside of that, it gets very difficult.
You know what's crazy, Trey, Montoya, and James, and everybody's looking. This is watching. The point you just mentioned about Atlanta. So as Montoya knows, I think he knows, I'm a real estate developer in my, I guess you can call it just life. I've been in this phase. So I watch real estate all across the country with a fine tooth comb. 1 out of 3 houses that were purchased in 2020 in Atlanta, Georgia, were purchased by the exact same private equity company. You got
that too.
2 out of 3 houses that's bought by Jimmy, Jack, John, Juju, Pookie, Phyllis, Frank, Philip. whatever. And then 1 out of 3 houses in Atlanta, Georgia in 2020 were purchased by the same private equity company. So if that doesn't tell you what's happening in Atlanta, Georgia, and because what we'll do, to James's point, right? What we'll do is we'll say, wait a minute, white folks coming in and buying up all the city. No, that's not the whole story. Somebody told you that the schools was better in Gwinnett and Cobb and Clayton and Douglas County, and you moved there, which allowed the opportunity for white flight to come back to the city of Atlanta, because there's one thing that never fails, ever, ever, ever in real estate. There are 3 things that are the most important things, and they will always be the 3 most important things in real estate. Location, location,
Yeah.
location.
Yep.
So if
Yep.
you tell me that the core of Atlanta, the city itself, which I used to be a native of, is
All right.
where the bevy of the central business district lies, at some point, guess who gonna want to be close to that?
Those with money.
The owners of those businesses.
Come on, man.
Those are money. So let me jump in real quick to give some context. So Tamika and Trey, good point about not taking the census or whatever. I understand where you're going with that, but I want to challenge even that thought. So what happens is, whatever, I always like to give my community this context about numbers. So whatever is the most comprehensive study you have, it's all you have to consider and go by. I know we like to attack and say, hey, it's not covering us, or that's not showing the real numbers. There is no other study to, and here it is. The consensus doesn't claim to be 100% accurate, because the consensus community, the consensus, whatever organization spends their life, so I say everybody fill out the consensus. So we do harm ourselves by, in a sense, not filling out the consensus. But it is still the gist of what that reality is. And the reason I know this the gist of what this reality is because historically, the same consensus, which gets more accurate every year. It was less, 100 years ago, it was less accurate than it is today. 50 years ago, it was less accurate than it is today. But the reason it captures most of the numbers, because 50 years ago and 60 years ago, when they wanted to make policies to harm us, that was the numbers that was used, because it is still the most general comprehensive study. So yes, we can agree that it's not accurate, but best believe they thought that Atlanta was going to not be majority Black 5 years from now. The actual consensus showed that it happened faster than what they thought it was happening. And that's happening with a lot of the demographics. Like, for example, this country was supposed to be majority minority by 2045. This new consensus just showed it ain't gonna be 2045. It's gonna be majority minority way sooner. Those are the best numbers that we have. So I want to throw that out, although I respect the concept. Sometimes in my opinion, we're quick to throw out numbers that give us a trend. I'm not saying the numbers show the whole story. They are a better trend than anything else we have. So sometimes we shouldn't just be dismissive of the number, because we have this concept, they can do anything what they want with the numbers. We say that all the time without respecting the context of how statistics work. So I wanted to throw that out. Now, the last thing I'll say, James, while obviously we grow up in our culture, and if we're in poor neighborhoods, well, it's very natural that our parents, we've all been through this, where our parents, if you have some type of talent, whether it be academic, whether it be athletic, or whether it be music, whatever that talent is, if there's an opportunity for you not to live in this downtrodden neighborhood, our parents are absolutely going to encourage you to, quote unquote, get out. So that is something. So somebody had asked that question, why do we leave? So we do have this concept of getting out, and we haven't made it, getting out of the hood. So it is something that is culturally pushed. I don't disagree with that. But I will say, James, that the 44,000 people moving in for the reasons that Keenan just talked about is how that number happened. It wasn't it wasn't that most Black people moved out of Atlanta. The reality is now that gentrification is happening the way it is, and I'm not talking about that gentrification just is what it is. That's not a black or white thing. It just is what it is. So as the gentrification takes place, once the rates are very low, then people start coming in because, like what Keenan said, location is still downtown priority. Once it's very low, they come buying it in. The reality is now most people are not moving out to get next to white people. It's a lot of people moved out because they can no longer afford to be there. That's the biggest reason why you see 47% happen. We shouldn't reduce it to, because here's the reality. Those that could get to the suburbs already kind of had done that. So the latest people to leave have been those who couldn't afford it. That's why that number, you get 44,000 coming in because of location, and they have the money. So it's more the influx of people coming to the city that can afford it. That includes high-end Blacks from the north. They got them good jobs. They come and live downtown just as easily as the whites do. But that 44,000 moving in and that 9,000 moving in, they can afford it. So it wasn't just Blacks trying to get out to the better schools. It's the people that can't afford it have been driven out. That happens with gentrification. You can go to Idaho. Not Idaho. I'm sorry. This same thing is happening in Tip, you out in Arizona, man. If you're on here, what's above Arizona? What's the state above y'all? I just can't see it in the map right now. Let me look at the map.
It's Utah and Nevada.
Yep. So Utah, Nevada right now is experiencing, because California is so high and expensive.
Yeah.
A lot of people that are doing well are going to Utah and Nevada, and guess who's having to leave? The poor people that can no longer afford how the real estate's raising up. So I'm just throwing out, that's really what's happening to those whites that no longer can afford to live in downtown Utah. They can no longer afford it. They're doing the exact same thing our people are doing. So it's not I hate the myths of, again, we do try to get out, but we've already kind of done that. The reason it's happening now is just because of the prices of real estate. If you can't afford it, you leave.
Well, that's for the ones of us that are in poverty. So I understand that. That's for the ones of us in poverty, because every time I'm on the meetings for the neighborhood, the first thing that comes up is affordable housing. We need affordable housing. We need affordable housing. But here's the joke that no one wants to talk about.
Okay.
We had affordable housing. It was called the projects. We tore it down.
Who's
so
we,
those
though?
are the people.
Who's we, though? When you say we, though?
We, the city of Atlanta, we, the community, because Atlanta has been under Black control for the past 40 years.
I'm saying, but doesn't this happen throughout? What you're talking about is happening the way real estate is going. This is happening in a bunch of cities. Now when you say Black
not
control,
to the same way it did Atlanta. Atlanta was one of the cities that did it more swifter than any other city. We had over 20 projects in our city. That's something else people don't talk about. We had over 20. We got rid of them all within probably 10 years. Under, what was it, Hope 4 under Bush, where we were trying to make home affordable. So they gave everyone Section 8 vouchers, and they said, go wherever you want, wherever you can afford them. And what happened is, people took them to South DeKalb County. Then the Black people there didn't want it, and it became too expensive. Then they started going to Clayton County.
Who didn't want it? Who didn't want it? What's it? I just want to understand you. You said that when you went to, they
didn't want their community flooded with Section 8 residents and Section 8 vouchers.
Okay.
So Section 8, you can go wherever you want, because the rent is determined by the owner.
Right.
So technically, you can have Section 8 in Buckhead if the owner wants you to have it.
My question to you is, how does that play out different anywhere? Like what I mean
because
is,
it happened more rapidly
okay,
here.
So here it is. Okay, yeah. So the speed of it, you got that down. But what I'm saying is, for example, though it happened slower in Chicago, it happened. Although it happened slower in New York, it happened. And then when it happens and they move those people out, it is human nature to say, if this is going to devalue where I live, whether they're right or wrong, the people say, I don't want it. What I'm saying is,
exactly.
So what I'm saying is, that plays out That's not racial. That's not black people not wanting to be the next to black people. When I see this play out the same, it just so happens Atlanta's in a black city. So when it plays out the same way in a black city as it happens anywhere, we shouldn't say there's an issue with how we think when this is what humans do.
I understand that,
So
but I'm talking on
context. It's unfair to put it in
I'm talking on a microcosm for the city of
ahead.
Atlanta. So I'm talking from a microcosm in the city that is ran by black people for the past 40 years, with black mayors, black Congress, council people.
What should they have done different? So basically, your request would be for Atlanta ran by black people for 40 years, which is true, right? Your request would be for those people that are running Atlanta to come up with a way to make the black people in Atlanta act different than how everybody else acts when this happens in their cities. Chicago is about 38% black. New York is less than that, but there's a bunch of different races or whatever. But what I'm saying is, you shouldn't expect Atlanta to act different than any other city just because we're black.
What I would have expected, or if you're asking me my would have, could have, should have.
Okay, yeah, I definitely.
My would have, could have, should have is that they should have been more specific on what affordable housing is, because right now we have a very what you call slack definition of what it is.
Okay.
For instance, in the neighborhood right now, they're talking about affordable housing. And one of the developments they're building around the corner for me, I think starts at $1,400 or $1,600 for efficiency or one bedroom, and that's considered affordable housing. And I'm like, well, who is that affordable for? Because I'm not lower class. I'm middle class myself, right, with a college degree, and that would be expensive for me.
Right.
So I can only imagine for someone making way less than me, what's your definition of affordable housing is. Right. Because for me, that's not even affordable. So that's my thing. I don't have a problem with them tearing down the projects personally, because I understand that to improve the area, you do have to break a couple of eggs, and people don't want to talk about that either. So there was going to be a shift anyway.
Okay.
My thing is how dramatic it was, and for the people that we wanted to stay, right, there wasn't really created a way for them to stay.
Right. So let's talk about that. I love that. There are people when those things are getting set. There are people that think as you do, and they fight their hardest to get that implemented when you get the concept of affordable housing. So the context of what it's up against is that, at the end of the day, the developer wants to make as much money as they can. We both know that. We're in a completely 100% capitalistic society, right? And so
that's right.
So what happens is in Atlanta, what our leadership did do, less under Kasim. I know that's partly what you're talking about, whatever. But, so what happens is, for those who think like you, and I'm not saying which way is right. I'm just talking about the actual plan. I'm not on either side. Let's just talk about the dialogue or how it plays out. So the way it plays out is there's a demand for at least a certain percentage of affordable housing, right? Or whatever. And so the developer who wants to make money says, okay, if it's city of Atlanta or whatever location, we'll keep using Atlanta because that's where we're at. So if it says 20% has to be affordable, at the end of the day, the developer knows they can make their money, and they'll agree to the 20% because they want to get in there. Because if they don't agree to it, they can't even get in. They're gonna lose out to another developer who agrees to the 20% or whatever. And then 20% gets put on a scale, and that 1,400 ends up being very affordable compared to everything else. And I'm not talking about whether it's right or wrong, but the unfortunate reality is quite often the real estate people, the business class run cities. The real estate developers usually have a lot of money. So if you're the mayor, you're stuck saying, okay, you'll give the people, let's say the original thing was, all right, we'll do 15% affordable housing. So to look at the people, you will bump it up to 20%, although the scale is going to come out the way it's going to come out. And the reason you end up bumping it up to that is the black people in the city voted the developer financed a third of your damn campaign.
That's right.
And that's
right.
So that's how it, and again, I'm not talking about right or wrong. It's just how it becomes difficult for the politicians that run the city to do, in a sense, what's best for the people. If, in a sense, because as we've talked about earlier, if that poor class can't pay to play when it comes to politics, then there's that dilemma that sometimes we reduce it to how we act, and none of what I just said has anything to do with how we act. Like, so
that's what you're talking about. I'm talking about.
I know you're not. I'm adding that in. I just threw that in. I threw that in too. But at the end of the day, I agree. I'm with you on setting what that amount can be, what can be really affordable. So I agree with you, but I also know that if I was sitting in, if I wouldn't choose to be a politician, but if I chose to be a politician, it wouldn't be as easy for me to make that decision if the developer to finance 1/4 of my campaign or 1/3 of my campaign, because the developer is putting the money in the campaign, whether I'm a Democrat or a Republican, because at the end of the day, they want that percentage to be as low as possible, and they're gonna pay for both sides of it. So I just know it becomes a lot difficult for the politician to make the decision, and I'm not forgiving them. I just know it's easier to say it when the only, if I intend to stay in office, it becomes difficult on what percentage you give or what that amount.
My thing is just be honest with people. And I guess that's the irony of politics. I'm asking politicians to be honest, but I'm like, just tell people, look, this is what we're going to do, and this is what it is, and let people know so they can prepare for it, so to speak. And I think that's what the real issue has been for me when I go to these meetings. And I'm basically saying, oh, yeah, we're going to have affordable housing now. We're going to have affordable housing. And then you tell me affordable housing is $1,400. And I'm like, who is that affordable for? And what do I need to do so I can get that kind of money? I'm like, I can't afford that. And I'm not the people that it's targeted for.
Right.
So I'm like, just be honest, though. But there was a whole bunch of things that happen, and I understand that too. And like you said, each developer wants to make money. So when I do talk to other people say they want affordable housing, I'm like, no one is building you free housing. They're not, point blank. And unfortunately, affordable housing usually means poor quality. So the things that you are living in right now that I personally would think is unsuitable or inhabitable, that is your affordable housing. As soon as the people put money in fixing it, it won't be affordable for you anymore. So you have to basically pick your poison. Do you want affordable housing or do you want quality housing? And I just think in that sense, we need to switch the conversation to basically educating people to making more money, because basically $500 rent is a thing of the past in Atlanta and many other major cities. It's gone. It's not coming back. So now we just need to educate our people saying, if you're going to live in this city, you need some type of education beyond high school and something that you can do beyond working fast food, because other than that, you're not going to be able to afford to live here.
Right. Yeah, I would, I mean, obviously we have these dialogues on Saturdays and things of that nature, but, even within this Buying Black Manifesto, for me, it's just an approach that I think is somewhat realistic based on the true context of being in a capitalistic country. I'm personally no longer caught up in the concept of we all got our leverage, our money. And the reason I say that is because I watch other groups and have talked to, I've done a show with Asian Americans or whatever. And when you really understand how they think, it's not as collective as we're pushing. Like, that's not how the needle moves. And so to push for that, and I think we push for something unrealistic that leaves us doing nothing, when we realistically could do some of what you just said, meaning going into the field, getting educated in the fields that do carry the higher incomes. Like that's a easier focus than this concept of being, because we don't realize this, we think these other groups collectively spend their money in ways that they don't. We just think they do. And so we're pushing for something that other groups don't even have to do, when we could just do the practical things that are right in front of us and available. And we have to, in a sense, in my opinion, use our media outlets. And that's what I try to, in a sense, be a voice for in the media, is to push messaging that can be the difference maker. Our age, I'm 47. And so everybody in our age group, we now know, for example, that our community ran way too long with get a good education, get a job, and you good. Like that's like we pushed that in our community for so long that now, for those that were able to get some college, now they're paying out larger loans and larger debts due to the expense of education. So that messaging got pushed for too long, and now we're on the tail end of, oh wow, we need to get trades now. And so I say this to simply say that we got to get in my opinion, in front of the messaging to the most practical things that are right in front of you versus the grandiose ideas, and then taking the time to argue over whether this grandiose idea works or not. Like, that's a waste of time, in my opinion, when we could be focused on what's right in front of us.
I feel you. I hear you. And I think that goes right back to business, which is what we was talking about automatically, not necessarily owning the business, but supporting businesses, because Black businesses are more likely to contribute back into Black communities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, like, for example, in the manifesto, it's a lot easier for us in Atlanta to spend Black because of, there are a lot of businesses here. But once you get outside of these Black enclaves, it's hard, but it becomes easier once you include the internet. That's why I gave those examples. And so for example, versus having to go way out your way to spend what you're on, if we could make a conscious effort to increase that 5%, and even ideally, in my opinion, 10% of your money goes toward Black-owned businesses, no matter where you live, that would be an influx of income that we would never even realize how helpful it would be. And if we could, in a sense, implement that in a sense, culturally to a degree, that's still not a quick fix. That's 10 years, 20 years from now, those businesses getting an opportunity to move, like I said in the beginning, from being a one-man shop. It gets to be a two-man shop. It gets to be a three-man shop, just because we consciously raise our children, without the idea that our stuff is less quality. All these myths that we put out there. And when I say myths, that's not to say that there are not Black-owned businesses that are slack on their game. That's why I highlighted the businesses that do their thing get supported very easily. I'm highlighting that to say that's the standard that we do have to meet, because I'm not acting like but the truth is there's good and bad businesses in all. We're just harsher because of our mindset about one another. So that's the challenge, in my opinion.
So what about the issue with hiring and expanding? Now, this is an issue I've seen with Black businesses, and also possibly in my own family. Like, my aunt has owned several businesses. My aunt was a hairstylist for over 30 years. So that's basically an independent contractor, meaning you have your own business. And she worked in the salon with some women. They basically opened it up on Wesley Chapel back during the height of that area. And she just got tired that every time it came time for the renewal, the owner, the white man of the building, wanted to raise their rent.
Right.
And she was like, this is cutting into my profit. So she basically said, y'all can do what y'all want to do. I'm about to go somewhere else. And she didn't want to rent another place. So she had a conversation with her husband, and she converted her downstairs into her own hair salon. And she was able to take probably like 90% of her clients that she had built up, and they went to her basement and basically would wait to get their hair done, possibly more comfortable because you could sit down in her living room, look at TV and everything while you was waiting to get your hair done. And then when she got carpal tunnel and she couldn't do hair anymore, she went through a midlife crisis. This is funny. And she wanted to have another baby. And her husband had a conversation about that. Like, no, we ain't doing that. So she's like, how can I make money doing something I wanted? So then she opened up a daycare and started taking care of people's babies. And she converted her downstairs into a daycare went and got all the permits and everything and opened it up. But when she did that, it became an issue of finding help and basically expanding it, because a lot of times these small businesses, they don't have a lot of money to pay you. So you're going to just have high turnover and stuff. But the other issue I heard is like from a guy in Nashville. He said he didn't want to expand his business because he said that the people are going to come. They're not going to do it the way I want to. I'm going to have to chase them down. And I'd rather just do it myself. And I've heard that a lot from Black businesses, that when they could expand, they purposely choose not to expand because they don't want the headache of payroll and HR.
Right. So yeah. Again, so for me, I would throw out that a lot of that's part of being first and second generation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, only 11% of the country is full-time entrepreneurs. So a lot of times we don't realize that. When you add in part-timers, it goes to 16% of the country. So 84% of us, ain't messing with, and as a country, I'm talking about country in general. So I highlight to say, so those are realities. But what's happening is I'm starting to see the expansion of people starting to talk systems in business. So when you look at our honest reality of how long we've collectively, in a sense, been able to go in business, these conversations to business, the conversations to having employees, like these things are starting to be talked about. With, if you were to go 100 years ago, that would have been Ford, that would have been Walmart. You understand what I'm saying? Like in the beginning,
yeah,
only a few trendsetters break out of not being mom pops, because at the end of the day, this country is run by small businesses. And so we're just really just going through the process. We're just now going through the process. And so what I'm saying is, what you're saying is a reality. I'm just trying to throw at you the concept of the context of how long that process will be before we actually have a bevy of second generation entrepreneurs. Because to be a second generation entrepreneur in our community is a rarity right now.
Yeah.
So you're listening to a lot of first generational entrepreneurs who more likely were great technicians. I'm guilty of this myself. You're great technicians, so you're very good at what you do, but you're not necessarily a good business person. And to learn to be a business person typically requires time. And if you're the best at what you do and you're good at doing it, or like the person says, I don't want to hire people because they're not going to do it like I want to do it, or whatever, that person either hasn't thought to create a system or hasn't had time to create a system.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Okay. When you said like great at what you do, but just not a good business person. With me, I'm excellent at what I do, but when it comes to like getting paid or charging, I'm the worst. I have like a big heart, and I started I don't have any money, baby. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm like, okay. And I end up pretty much just volunteering because it's like elderly, I'm doing private duty, so it's like elderly, patients and stuff like that. And so I started just like, everything was like, okay, because like if I go to like in the say a rich area or something, just for an hour or something like that, I would make with traveling and everything, I get like $250 for just 1 hour. Right. But if I go to certain areas, it was more like, oh, I can't, I don't have any money this time, I'm sorry. And I kept saying, okay. And then when I realized, I'm like, I'm not making any money, I'm just doing the services.
Were you breaking even between both places, or you actually were losing money?
I was pretty much losing money because I would start like whatever I cook for dinner and stuff, I cook more so I can make sure they have dinner and stuff like that. Make sure they have food in their house and stuff. And it was more giving. Right. But I didn't mind doing it. It was just that I had to still do full-time work because it was like, it wasn't right. I ended up taking from my own home.
Right. So I don't know if you caught the beginning when Keenan was still here, but and I don't know what this looks like for you, but I'll just say this again because I don't know if you caught it. But he just mentioned the idea of, because remember we talked about that concept of the hookup. Remember that was part of the discussion.
Yeah.
And so what he said was, when you're starting out, don't be doing that. Like he talked about, he's at a point now at a certain tier in his business where he makes it simple for himself. It's either free or his price. But he said he had to get there. So in your first year or two, you have to, as best you can, try to target those who can afford you, whatever that looks like. Because, like you said, you're losing time and money, and you get, if you do that too much, something you love can become something you hate.
And I started, I guess, trying to change it more of a nonprofit. Because I do have, was able to get to a lot of doctors, and they were like volunteering, but money and stuff that was helping. Like now, it's helping to kind of cut the cost. I'm not losing any money that way, and so I just got to really dig into it.
So I don't know, because I'm not saying this is the initial fix, but I think you really should focus on what your target market is based on what you want to make, because you know what your worth is, you know what you do, like I say, you're good at what you do. So, so what happens is if you do what Keenan said, eventually you would get enough clientele at your market. Eventually you'll have an abundance. So then now you can throw opportunities to maybe some of those communities that are, because if you know what I'm saying, if you give before you establish, you can't get established. So so it's almost like you have to challenge yourself. And I told you, you have to challenge yourself to get it's to put the mask on before you help somebody else thing or whatever. Yeah. So it's that's just your lesson, because otherwise you're gonna end up hurting yourself and that person who needs you. It's better not to have made the relationship. So by the time you deal with them, you can help them regardless. Tamika says, listen to this. She says, I've been where you've been, Erica. And she just says what myself and Keenan are saying is the truth. So you're listening, Tamika has Big Sis Media, does very well. But she's saying she's coming from that same place. So it's just your personal challenge to stick with your target market and figure out how to market to them. And I mean, if you're already getting some of those type of clientele that can, pay the $250 an hour and all that kind of stuff. So that just means you definitely can do the work. You just gotta figure out how to market to get more of those type of clients and get established first before you start going back to some of those other communities. All right, y'all. I'm about to shut this thing down, man. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. I will holler at you guys later. I got to start working on my business plan.
I can dig it, brother. All right, y'all. Thank y'all.
All right, good night.
Yeah, no doubt.